Jerry Jones just blew up the Cowboys' offseason plan, and almost nobody saw it coming. Dallas surrendered the most points per game in the entire NFL last season and allowed 377 yards a game, a number only 2 teams in the league were worse at. That is not a close the gap problem. That is a the walls are caving in problem. And on a random Sunday in the middle of training camp, Jerry Jones decided he was done watching it happen. He picked up the phone, and Dallas landed an 8-time Pro Bowl pass rusher who is coming home to Texas. But here's the part almost nobody is talking about yet: that signing might just be the appetizer. Because less than 30 minutes after the ink was announced, a second name started trending in Cowboys circles, a name tied directly to the coach Jerry Jones is trusting to fix this defense. Stick around, because by the end of this video you're going to understand exactly why one veteran cornerback with NFC East scars all over his resume could be the move that turns Dallas from pretender to genuine contender. Here's the thing about this next move: it isn't a splashy, headline-grabbing blockbuster. It's quieter than that. It's smarter than that. And that's exactly what makes it dangerous for the rest of the NFC. Because this isn't about star power. It's about a defensive coordinator who already knows exactly what this player can do, who coached him for an entire season, who watched him line up across from 2 of the best young cornerbacks in football, and hold his own. If Dallas pulls this off, they're not just adding a body to the depth chart, they're importing chemistry, scheme familiarity, and a piece that was purpose-built to plug their single biggest weakness. Keep watching, because the story behind this connection goes back years, and it explains why the Cowboys front office suddenly looks less like a team scrambling and more like a team executing a plan. Before we dig into all of it, the collapse last season, the coaching connection, what this player actually brings, and where this negotiation stands right now, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This front office moves fast, and you don't want to miss the moment this becomes official. Let's start with the ugly truth, because you can't understand why Dallas is suddenly desperate for secondary help without seeing exactly how bad things got last season. The Cowboys allowed 31 points per game, the most in the entire National Football League. Not top 5. Not top 3. First. Worst defense in football by that measure. And it wasn't a one-week fluke or a couple of blowout losses skewing the numbers. Dallas also gave up 377 yards per game, a figure only 2 teams in the league managed to be worse than. Think about that for a second. 30 teams played defense better than the Dallas Cowboys did last year. For a franchise with the kind of expectations Jerry Jones carries, with the kind of spotlight that follows this organization into every single game, that is not a number you can spin. That is not a number you can bury in a press conference about next man up, or growing pains. That's a number that gets people fired, that gets coordinators shown the door, that forces an entire philosophical reset. And that's exactly what happened. Dallas moved on and brought in a first-year defensive coordinator named Christian Parker to try to turn the page. Now here's where it gets interesting, because Parker's background is about to become the single most important thread in this entire story. Christian Parker didn't come out of nowhere. Before Dallas hired him, he was on the Philadelphia Eagles defensive staff, working as a pass game coordinator and defensive backs coach. That matters enormously, because the Eagles' secondary last season featured some serious talent: Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean, both of whom earned first-team All-Pro recognition. Parker was in the room helping mold that unit. He knows what elite cornerback play looks like up close. He knows the technique, the verbiage, the scheme concepts that made that Eagles secondary function at a championship level. So when Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones went out and said publicly that this defense would look different in 2026, that wasn't just motivational talk for the fans. They handed the keys to a coach who had just come from one of the best defensive back rooms in the league. And that decision is exactly why the next domino falling makes so much sense. On a Sunday that nobody saw coming, word broke that Von Miller, the 2-time Super Bowl champion, 8-time Pro Bowler, was signing a 1-year deal with the Dallas Cowboys. This is a player who racked up 9 sacks for the Washington Commanders in 2025, still producing at a high level, still capable of wrecking a game plan off the edge. And now he's coming home. Miller is a Texas native, and there's something poetic about a legendary pass rusher closing out his career wearing the star on his helmet, chasing one more ring in his home state. But here's what almost got lost in the excitement of that signing. Within about 30 minutes of the news going public, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler reported that the Cowboys weren't done. That the front office had been quietly exploring cornerback help in free agency the entire time. And Fowler didn't just gesture vaguely at the secondary. He gave a name. A specific name. Adoree Jackson. If you've followed the NFL for any length of time, you already know the name. Adoree Jackson was a first-round pick out of USC back in 2017, taken by the Tennessee Titans, where he spent his first 4 seasons in the league. From there his career took him through the NFC East gauntlet, 4 seasons with the New York Giants, then last year with the Philadelphia Eagles. That's 5 straight years grinding inside one of the most physical, pass-happy divisions in football. Over his career, Jackson has racked up 459 tackles, 5 interceptions, 6 forced fumbles, and 5 fumble recoveries. He's made 76 career starts across 9 seasons in the league. This isn't a project player or a camp body. This is a veteran who has started football games against elite competition for nearly a decade. Last season with the Eagles, playing under Christian Parker, Jackson appeared in 14 games with 10 starts. He posted 55 tackles, 11 pass breakups, and an interception. By Pro Football Focus's grading, it was a modest season, a 54.6 overall grade, not the flashiest number on paper. But raw grades don't always tell the whole story, and in this case, context matters enormously. Here's why this isn't just another aging veteran floating around free agency looking for a paycheck. Jackson spent last season lined up in the same secondary that Christian Parker was coaching. He played opposite Quinyon Mitchell and alongside Cooper DeJean, the same All-Pro tandem we mentioned a minute ago. Jackson wasn't the star of that group. He was the experienced hand holding down the boundary while 2 rising stars got the headlines. Parker coached him through all of it. Parker knows his technique. Parker knows how he communicates in the secondary, how he processes route concepts, where his strengths are and where he needs support. And there's an even deeper layer to this. Reports have pointed out that Von Miller himself worked alongside Christian Parker on that same Denver Broncos defense back in 2021. So you've got a defensive coordinator who has a real, tangible history with both of Dallas's newest potential additions. This isn't the Cowboys throwing darts at a board of available free agents. This is a coordinator pulling in players he trusts, players whose games he has already seen up close under pressure. This connection isn't brand new either. Back in the spring, before training camp even opened, Jackson made a visit to the Cowboys facility, the Star, to meet with the team. At that point, Dallas had one open spot on their 90-man roster and had already been active at cornerback, signing veterans Kobe Durant and Darian Kendrick, and using a 4th-round draft pick on Devin Moore. The interest in Jackson wasn't a reaction to the Von Miller move. It had been simmering for months. At the time, insider Jordan Schultz reported the visit, and analysts noted that with over $8 million in cap space still available, Dallas had the flexibility to make another low-cost addition. And low cost is a real factor here. Jackson played for just $1.75 million in 2024 and around $1.76 million in 2025. This is not a player looking to break the bank. For a team trying to patch multiple holes without blowing up its salary structure, that affordability is a genuine advantage. Nothing came of that first visit immediately. But now, with the Von Miller domino falling and the front office clearly signaling urgency, that dormant connection has roared back to life. Let's talk about exactly what's broken in this secondary, because it explains why Jackson's name keeps resurfacing. Dallas is returning Darren Bland, who was recently given a contract extension, and they used a 3rd-round pick in 2025 on Siobhan Revel. On paper, that sounds like a promising young corner duo. In reality, both of them missed extensive chunks of last season, Bland battling another injury, and Revel making a late debut as he worked back from a torn ACL suffered back in 2024. That's the nightmare scenario for any defense. Your top two building blocks at cornerback are both injury question marks heading into a season where the front office has publicly declared they're done accepting mediocrity. Durant and Kendrick give Parker some depth, but depth isn't the same as answers. And that's exactly the gap a veteran like Jackson, durable enough to have made 76 career starts, versatile enough to have played multiple coverage schemes including the type of 3-4 hybrid look that Parker is expected to install in Dallas, could fill. Zoom out for a second, because the Jackson pursuit doesn't exist in a vacuum. This has been a defense-obsessed offseason for Dallas from the very start. In the 2026 draft, the Cowboys used both of their first-round selections on defense, safety Caleb Downs at pick 11, and edge rusher Malachi Lawrence at pick 23. In free agency, they signed safety Jalen Thompson to a 3-year, $33 million deal. They traded for Green Bay Packers edge rusher Rashawn Gary. And now, on top of all of that, they added Von Miller. This is not a franchise dabbling. This is a franchise that looked at a defense that allowed the most points in football and decided to rebuild it, piece by piece, with intention. Jerry Jones said Dallas was entering this season with more urgency than in recent memory, and Stephen Jones backed that up publicly, promising the defense would look different when the games start counting. Every single move since then has backed up that promise. Adoree Jackson would simply be the next chapter, arguably the cheapest, lowest risk, highest familiarity move still left on the board. So where does this actually leave us? As of the most recent reporting, nothing is signed. This is still very much a rumor with real substance behind it, not an official transaction. Jackson is a free agent. Dallas has already shown deep, direct interest, going all the way back to that spring visit. The coaching connection to Christian Parker is real and well documented. The cap space is reportedly there. The need on the roster is undeniable, especially with injury concerns still hanging over both Bland and Revel. And the timing, surfacing again literally hours after the Von Miller news broke, suggests this front office isn't slowing down. But contracts aren't signed on vibes and reporting alone. Jackson could still test the market elsewhere. Other teams with cornerback needs could swoop in. Negotiations could stall over dollars, or roster fit, or a dozen other variables that never make it into the headlines. This is a name to watch situation, not a done deal, and that's exactly why it's worth paying close attention to over the coming days. If Dallas does get this across the finish line, picture what that secondary starts to look like. Darren Bland, when healthy, is a proven ball hawk. Siobhan Revel brings size and upside once he's fully cleared from his ACL recovery. Kobe Durant and Darian Kendrick add competition and depth. And then you slide in a 9-year veteran who already speaks the exact defensive language Christian Parker is installing, who has 76 career starts of experience handling elite receivers in one of the toughest divisions in football. That's not a flashy, headline-dominating move. But it might be exactly the kind of unglamorous, chemistry-driven addition that turns a defense that gave up the most points in the league into one that can actually hold its own in January. If you want to be the first to know the moment this becomes official, signing, contract terms, roster fit, all of it, make sure you're subscribed and you've got notifications turned on. Because this front office has shown all offseason that they move fast, and this story is far from finished.